on tourists and factors contributing to the so-called ambassador effect. And we've been doing observations and interviews with passengers on these ships. And one aspect of the expedition tourist experience that really fascinated us from the beginning was the polar plunge. And I'm guessing that most of you are familiar with this activity. It's a pretty well-known aspect of the Antarctic tourist experience. It's strongly marketed by a number of expedition tour operators as part of the experience. And it's been happening for well over three decades in various forms, probably longer than that. And essentially, it's what its name says. It is a plunge into the near freezing Antarctic waters, so that people really immerse themselves quite literally in the environment, if only for a few seconds. So it's a long established activity for Antarctic tourists, but it's also one of those activities where you might ask, well, does this really belong in Antarctica? What is it doing, and why, and who is it helping besides tourists and tour operators? So when we came to this activity, there were a few thoughts we initially had around how we might approach it. On the one hand, it's pretty clearly a form of ritual, and depending on the operator, it can be quite heavily ritualized in the way that it's done with particular elements. It's certainly got a strong element of performative hardship. And in this sense, it's an initiation ceremony of sorts, which you might consider to be similar to the crossing the line or crossing the circle ceremony. You can see here on the right an unfortunate passenger who's participating in crossing the Antarctic Circle ceremony by having a ladle of icy water poured down her back. It mimics the midwinter ritual swim as well. It happens at some Antarctic stations and has done for a long time. It certainly has a relationship with other leisure and philanthropic activities like ice swimming, like the ice bucket challenges that happen, like low latitude plunges into cold water, which are sometimes called polar plunges, even though they don't happen in the polar regions. It's got a adrenaline charge for sure, and in that sense, it might have some similarities to extreme sports, but really it involves relatively little risk for the people who do it. And you might consider it part of the enrichment program that is offered by the operators, but it doesn't have any obvious link, as do most of the other parts of that program, to things like education and ambassadorship. So we began by asking some really quite broad questions about this activities. What were the key factors and motivations informing our participants' decisions on whether or not to participate in the polar plunge? Not everyone does participate. And what were the primary impacts of plunging on those who did participate? Now, just a few notes on the kind of field work that we did. As I said, we partnered with these two expedition tour operators over 2 seasons. We took a qualitative approach, participant observation and semi-structured interviews. We did over 400 interviews on 3 vessels across 7 voyages, so we have quite a rich set of data there. However, these aren't 400 different individuals, because we did one interview usually on the way down to Antarctica on the Drake Passage, and then another on the return voyage, and then in some cases a 3-month follow-up. That was with some of the HX cohort. And in the second of those interviews, the one on the return, we asked, did you do the polar plunge, and how did that affect your experience? So most of the data from this presentation is from that second return interview. And then we coded our interviews thematically via NVivo. And I will turn to our findings because we don't have, before I do that, I wanted to make sure that people understand that there are a variety of ways of doing the polar plunge, and that was certainly true across our operators. HX do a very conventional plunge from the ship, from the same place where the Zodiacs are launched. So you jump into the water with a harness tied around your waist. You can see my colleague and saying, doing that quite enthusiastically here on the right. HX, at least when we travelled with them, did it quite differently from the shore, where people in much smaller groups, sort of small batches at different landings, would go in to the water, essentially wade in from the shore, a somewhat more excruciating experience, in my opinion. And sometimes there were occasions when it wasn't possible to plunge because of weather, logistics, what have you. And then there would be variations on the experience, as this person we interviewed describes. So we just sat on like a recliner and they sprayed us down with the hose that had seawater straight from the ocean. That's really cool, really cold, obviously. And then, I don't know, then you get a little certificate saying you did it, something special to take back home. Exactly. Just tell everyone, I did it, polar plunge. So that's actually more of a polar spray, really, with a hose. But it's substituting for the experience of the polar plunge, obviously because the expeditioners and the tourists considered it to be too important an aspect of the experience to miss. So we've got both of those kinds of experience and occasional other ones in our data. All right, so moving on to our findings. This is essentially the factors that were part of deciding to plunge, and we didn't do a quantitative analysis, but this is the rough order of most to least prevalent. So up the top was familiarity already with cold water swimming and plunging in other places. So in the Arctic or in Canada or anywhere that had some kind of cold water plunging experience. So this person here says, I'm from Canada, I'm used to cold water, and my family has a cottage on the lake, and I've plunged there. So it was like, I'm ready for this, it'll be fine. The next reason was the party atmosphere that was created, and this was purely from intrepid respondents, the excitement and energy of the atmosphere. I just remember that feeling of walking into the galley where they're like blasting music and people were wearing costumes and taking shots of vodka and stripping off their robes and tying up to ropes. It was like being on a different planet. The next reason was the fact that the activity had been understood from the start, from marketing material and so forth, as a key part of the trip. There was a strong element of FOMO, of not wanting to regret not doing it. And on the flip side of that, the positive side, there was the pleasure of being able to say you did do it. So here, this person who did plunge says, there are a lot of people that are way above their comfort zone doing things like the paddling, the kayaking, or the plunge. That's why it's such a big thing, right? The bragging rights when they get home and tell people, especially if you're from a tropical country, you know, all these Aussies and Kiwis. I've got to say I'm an Aussie and it's not particularly tropical where I am in Tasmania, but nonetheless, I think we see what they're saying. Encouragement from others was important for intrepid passengers, as was a kind of why not, why the hell not attitude. And across both cohorts, health benefits were important. Factors in deciding not to plunge from the most to the least prevalent. Dislike of the cold was up there. That was certainly the reason why I personally didn't plunge. As was just the fact that people didn't necessarily feel the need to plunge. This person says, I did not feel any piece of my heart saying, yes, I want to do it. Another person says, I don't need that adrenaline. Some people were actively resistant to the idea. So this person, for example, says, I'm more about the Antarctic itself than about me. What is the glacier doing? How are the penguins surviving? It's not whether or not John himself jumped in and did the polar plunge.
Elizabeth, I'm sorry to interrupt. You have
Yes.
1 minute left.
Oh, okay, that's quicker than I thought.
Yeah, it goes fast. You can extend yourself.
Okay. Having done it elsewhere was another important reason, even though that was also a reason to plunge. Not being able to swim well, an obvious one for intrepid where you jump into the deep water, failure of nerve at the last minute, and age and health concerns. And then impacts of and reflections on the plunge from most to least prevalent. A big reason was, a big reflection was that people wanted to spend longer in the water or have another go. They felt like they didn't get a long enough chance to really appreciate the experience. People certainly felt positive after the experience, those health benefits. It was a bonding and supportive experience for people, especially on Intrepid. Doing it with 120 other people. 10 years from now, you'll talk to them about the polar plunge. It was about the strength and sense of community. Some people felt a heightened or deepened experience of Antarctica. This person says, I just feel Antarctica needs to be recognised. I wanted to make a point of recognising it for myself. Another person says, it showed me it's not a place where humans should be. There was a sense of pride in meeting a challenge, coming out feeling invigorated and competent and pushing out of the comfort zone, creating a lasting memory and creating an intention for the future. Only a few people said that. So some conclusions as my time is up. Yes, the polar plunge is a high adrenaline, somewhat egotistical activity. And for this reason, some people were skeptical and resistant. For others, it was a major drawcard for the trip. The heroic challenge nature of the activity didn't necessarily preclude a deepened sense of place attachment, something that we feel underlies the ambassador effect. It was a strongly bonding experience and gave people a sense of challenge, but mostly when it was done from the ship. So that high adrenaline experience was also the one which made them feel the most place attachment and bonding with others. And those factors could potentially be important to the ambassador effect. So our next steps are to complete the analysis, particularly the comparison between the different versions of plunging, and think about how we can maximise the potentially positive contribution of this activity to that sought-after ambassador effect. And apologies for going slightly over. I will finish up there.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. It's okay. Thank you for your presentation. We know you have to go, so in case anyone has any questions, please do send them with your email so they can then send them to you at the end of the cycle of conferences. So we now must continue, thank you, with Dana Jelen and the presentation Digitization of Cultural Heritage, the case study of the Antarctic legacy of South Africa. Welcome, Dana. Or Dana, I'm sorry. Dana, can you speak, please?
Okay, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, great. I'll just go straight into it and share my slides. Share.
Do you want to turn on your camera, or it's okay like that?
Is that okay, or?
It's no, if you don't want to, you don't need to, don't worry.
Okay, cool.
Presentation is
I'll
on.
show my face at the end, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you. You have 12 minutes. We'll remind you at 1.
Okay.
Please go.
So, hello everyone, my name is Dana Jelen and I'm an assistant digital archivist at the Antarctic Legacy of South Africa. I will be presenting my research study titled Digitization of Cultural Heritage, the Case of the Antarctic Legacy of South Africa. This was a master's dissertation that I conducted and completed at the University of Cape Town in 2025. So yeah, this presentation is going to be very academically structured. This is an outline of my research study that I'm going to tell you about, but I'm going to go ahead. So to start off, digitization is beneficial because it increases accessibility, and so it helps with promotion because you can reach a much wider audience. Furthermore, it creates backups of originals, helping to preserve cultural heritage. So why is cultural heritage so important and worth preserving? It not only enables the transmission of skills and knowledge between generations, but also plays a role in understanding one's history, identity, and social values. Of course, digitization also brings challenges such as financial, technical, managerial, legal, and human resource issues. So for my master's, I decided to focus on the Antarctic Legacy of South Africa, which was established in 2009. The project is funded by the National Research Foundation and forms part of the South African National Antarctic Programme. ALSA aims to promote and preserve South Africa's contributions to and experiences in the Arctic region, and focuses on the rich human history of expeditions conducted since the Antarctic Heritage Era, which is the late 1800s, up till the present. Once digitized, the materials are made available on the Antarctic Legacy Archive, which is ALSA's digital repository. On this slide to the left is an image showing where the 3 research stations are located. Top right is South Africa's base on Antarctica, and below that is South Africa's polar research vessel, the SA Agulhas II. Now focusing on the research problem, digitization assists memory institutions in the preservation, access, and promotion of their cultural heritage collections. However, these opportunities are only achievable if the challenges experienced during digitization are identified and addressed. ALSA aims to safeguard and provide access to the history of South Africa in the Arctic region through digitization efforts. However, it remains unclear whether ALSA has encountered obstacles in implementing such initiatives. So moving on to the research objective. The objective of my research is to investigate and document the digitization approaches and challenges experienced by ALSA. These are the 4 critical questions. Why is ALSA digitizing cultural heritage materials? What are ALSA's digitization approaches? What are the possible challenges experienced by ALSA in digitizing cultural heritage materials? How can these challenges, if any, experienced by ALSA be addressed? Moving on to supporting theory, I chose the theory of constraints to guide the study. It's a management philosophy that emphasizes the importance of identifying limiting factors or bottlenecks that prevent organizations from meeting their goals. As seen in the slide, TOC is the short for theory of constraints, has 7 focusing steps to help resolve the issues that are causing the challenges within an organization. This slide is about how my research questions related to the theory of constraints, but I don't think I'm going to have enough time, but I'll just give one example. Is the first research question was, why is ALSA digitizing cultural heritage materials? This related to the first TOC step, which was decide on the goal of the system. For the literature review, I structured it around the 4 critical questions. First, I explored why memory institutions digitize cultural heritage materials, which is mainly to preserve them and improve access. I looked next at digitization approaches, which included workflows, management, policies, and standards such as metadata and file formats. I then examined what digitization challenges are experienced. The common ones found around the world included limited funding, inadequate technology, shortage of skilled staff, as well as copyright uncertainties. Finally, I explored possible solutions. While there is extensive literature on these challenges, very few studies, excuse me, my voice is going. Very few studies suggest practical ways to address these challenges. So I used a qualitative approach and a case study, and this allowed me to collect multiple sources of data. And I analyzed 10 documents relating to ALSA, such as blogs. Excuse me, I think I've got to drink something. Excuse me. And my voice is going. Sorry, my voice, excuse me. I analyzed 10 documents relating to ALSA and also interviewed 6 individuals. Oh my God, my voice. I'm going to just skip the slide. So these are my findings. This table gives a broad overview of the findings of my research and the themes in the left column that emerge in answering the critical questions. It also shows triangulation in the 2 right-hand columns where the evidence came from, which strengthens the findings. Excuse me. Here are some of the sub-themes that fell under the main themes from the previous slide. For example, under the main theme of capacity and workflow challenges. Oh, my throat hurts. Oh my God. I really can't talk. My throat is like hurting and it's just suddenly gone. I don't know if it's possible to come back and redo from here because my voice is completely like, I don't know, gone.
I think for the time we have quite tight on schedule. So what we can do is right now just if you can't continue, please do not if it's hurting you. We'll just open
I
up
can't,
questions. Yeah, no, do
Really
not worry,
gone. My
please.
voice is gone. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, don't worry. We will now let people send in questions. So maybe if Elizabeth wants to answer them live, we can make them. So don't worry, Dana.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much anyway. We have around 6 minutes for questions. We already have one, so I'm gonna read it. It's from Zdenka. It's a question for Elizabeth. Are you aware of any environmental consequences, presumably negative, of the polar plunge? If yes, how have those been addressed on board, reflected upon by your participants?
Yes, that's something that we've thought about. I haven't come across any analyses or evidence of, or I've not seen anybody discuss that element, but certainly some of our participants were aware of it, well, expressed reluctance to plunge because of what they thought would be an environmental impact. Interestingly, those ones were from Intrepid, where people simply jump into the deep water. Whereas, and I'm just guessing here, I would have thought that the Hurtigruten version of going in from the shore, where you put a tarp on the shore and everybody puts their stuff on that and then people walk essentially into the water, would be more environmentally problematic, even though that didn't come up in the Hurtigruten people. So I think it's definitely worth us investigating further. I know that people used to do a version of the plunge at Deception Island where they essentially dug a pit or a hole in the sand, and which of course is slightly warmer than usual because of the geological activity there at the volcano, and they would sit in it like a spa, and you used to see pictures of this everywhere. And that was banned by IATO as environmentally problematic. So although I haven't seen anything, we haven't looked very hard. So that's something that I will make a note of to pursue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If anyone else has questions, please do send them in. If not, we can wait until 11 p.m. for the next round. Sean, please do send them through the Q&A section, as we kind of have problems with the permits on microphones. If it's possible, of course. Thank you. We will send them anyways, even if Elizabeth answers them, in case she wants to answer to you through mail or not. Okay, here's the question by Sean Lavery. Hi, El. Were there quite a few people that changed their minds at the last minute? We had several who went in their underwear when it came time.
There were a number of people. Hi, Sean. Nice to sort of see you. There were some people who lost their nerve, who had determined to plunge and did not at the last minute. We didn't come across any people who decided to at the last minute and went in their underwear. although we did have some costume malfunctions, and we did have one person who was trying to promote a particular brand of sustainable swimwear, and that was their reason for going in. So there were some interesting variations on what they wore, but we didn't find many people who had a last minute change of mind.
Thank you very much for both the question and the answer. I think that is it for questions at this time. We thank both of you very much. We do hope Diana gets well from her throat. And thank you very much, Elizabeth. Please, if you need to go to sleep, go ahead, as you have.
I will soon. And
apparently
thank
very
you
tight
for
schedule.
everyone. And hope, Dana, you're feeling better soon. And please send any questions by email. We'd love to get them. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you. We will now move on to the next set of presentations. And we would like to welcome Adrian van Eden-Wharton and Sean Lowry, who are going to present about polar fried chicken, tensions between public engagement and fast food marketing in KFC, South Africa's Beyond the Sea campaign. Welcome both Adrian and Sean.
Hi. At the moment, I'm not allowed to start my video.
We will fix it in a second.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Excuse me.
We need you to ask for permission to share your video camera, please.
It doesn't look like Adrian has either unmuting access or video access.
Okay. I have requested her to activate her. Okay,
There she is. Okay, great. She will start.
Okay, thank you. I don't know what is up with the video. We will ask the tech support about that. Thank you. You have 12 minutes as always, so please, if you can, do start.
Hi, today Sean and I will be giving an overview of an article co-authored with our colleagues Mahita and Jean that was recently published in the Polar Journal's special issue on public engagement with the polar regions, edited by Elizabeth Lean and Katie Marks. In this article, we offer a slightly sideways approach to polar science communication and public engagement by focusing on a 2024 marketing campaign by fast food restaurant chain Kentucky Fried Chicken in South Africa. KFC's Beyond the Sea campaign prominently features Marion Island, part of South Africa's southernmost territory and the site of significant long-term scientific research and monitoring programs. It tells the story. Oh, I see my video access has been enabled. Yay, thank you. It tells the story of two fictional overwintering expeditioners at the South African Research Station on the remote subantarctic island, who miss home, well, or rather the taste of KFC so much that they head out in a rigid inflatable on a 2,000-kilometer journey back to the fast food chain's nearest outlet on the mainland. In keeping with broader industry moves to cross-platform branding, KFC's integrated advertising campaign, strategically launched in the weeks building up to the SA Agulhas 2's departure on its annual relief voyage to Marion Island, included radio teasers, a filmic commercial, vox pop reels, and a mobile game. It also blended promotional material and unbranded science communication. Our article provides a thematic analysis of the Beyond the Sea campaign within the context of South Africa's polar histories and existing public engagement programs. The campaign raises key questions about whether, and if so how, corporate advertising can contribute to or detract from public awareness of and engagement with the polar regions, particularly in relation to the objectives of science communication for social justice and encouraging on Antarctic artistic and cultural production from Africa. The central and most memorable part of the campaign is a 2-minute 40-second Filmer commercial directed by Kim Geldenhuys, which hopefully should start playing now.
Hey, my love. Hey, guys. Marrying those flavors together. It's an island joke.
You okay?
Since you went away, I've been blue. You don't know what I'm going through.
I'm coming home, baby.
Come on home.
I'm coming home, baby, now. I'm coming home now, right away.
You've been gone.
I'm coming home, baby,
You
now.
don't know what I'm going through.
I'm sorry that I ever went away.
Since you've been away,
Take me any day.
come on home. Come on home. Want to feel you hold me tight. When I'm in your arms, I'm alright. Come on home.
I'm coming home, baby, now.
You know I'm counting every day.
I'm coming home now, baby, yeah.
That you're coming home right away. Come on home.
I'm coming home, baby, now.
No, I'm counting every day. You're too far. Want to feel you hold me tight.
I'm coming home, baby, now.
Distance from home is frequently associated with isolation from friends and family. In the film, the isolation of the Marion Island overwintering team is contrasted with the sociability of life on the mainland, linking the latter to the shared meals provided by KFC. In addition to distance and isolation versus proximity and sociability, the Beyond the Sea campaign also suggests the contrast between deprivation and pleasure, sacrifice and satisfaction. Note, for example, the much more colorful scenes in the video calls from home. The island appears as a symbolic site of deprivation and sacrifice for the overwintering team in their pursuit of science, and even more so for the brave protagonists who journey back to the mainland in their small boat in pursuit of KFC. The themes of exile and marooning, escape and rescue too, are intertwined in the film's imagery with allusions to the well-established genres of epic island adventure and survival narratives. These contribute to the overall sense of deprivation and endurance that accentuates the plentifulness and ease of KFC by contrast. All three of these themes, home or belonging, sociality and pleasure, are underlined also by the film's use of humor.
Distance from home is frequently associated with, next one. The film clearly works by juxtaposing some characteristics of Marion Island's remote sub-Antarctic setting, as Adrian has said, distance, isolation, and deprivation, with what KFC wants to be its marketed association, so accessibility, sociability, and satisfaction. But the desired effect could only be achieved if its intended audiences knew about the existence of the island and its connection to South Africa in the first place. KFC's marketing team, therefore, designed a prior unbranded phase of the advertising campaign to introduce the public to Marion Island, For instance, by giving field researchers the opportunity to talk about their work and experiences on the island and producing legitimate science communication products. So this is a SEAL Science article in one of our local newspapers. Another unbranded component, the radio teasers, produced unexpected responses to the campaign. They were designed to resemble maritime distress calls. So the radio adverts featured the voices of the two fictional expeditioners, and they interrupted radio broadcasts in the build-up to the television commercial's release. As a result, concerned listeners contacted the South African NSRI, the National Search and Rescue, who afterwards took KFC to task in a playful exchange of messages on social media, and it ended up with KFC donating money. Several other facets of the cross-platform campaign demonstrate its reach and impact. A mobile game released in May 2024 allowed viewers and consumers to imagine themselves as also traveling, even as adventurers themselves, by scrolling the equivalent of 2,000 kilometers on their mobile phones in a virtual homeward journey from Marion Island to the mainland. Interestingly, this campaign also sparked independent content creators to post short videos about #Marion Island, and appears to have captured young South Africans' interest and imagination, with Marion Island going from being largely unknown to becoming a popular hashtag. We have also spoken informally to several Marion Island scientists who say that they can now more easily explain what their work involves by referring to the KFC advert. Since the commercial could not be filmed on Marion Island, it's not in fact allowed by the permit regulations, recreating the subantarctic setting was an important aspect of this large, high-budget production. While there's always a juggling act with what works conceptually and creatively, the production in the end included some startling inaccuracies. The most obvious, of course, is that there are no walruses, such as the one that chases the training runner in the southern hemisphere. Elephant seals, obviously, but not walruses. The film's opening sequence features the decommissioned base alongside the current one. So that's a view you can see on the left of the base, and on the right, that's what it actually looks like. It's one of Adrian's images. But the interior scenes, such as the one on the bottom left, suggest facilities which are way more high-tech than the reality. And also the vegetation differs significantly from that which is on the island. Another sort of slight inaccuracies you can see at the end of if you remember, in the end of the commercial, they launch from this beach, have a whole meeting on the beach, and there are no such beaches on Marion Island. These are archival photographs of when landings were still attempted on the beaches. Very wild, very difficult to launch a boat from. Most landings on the island are now by helicopter. So the main function of the Beyond the Sea campaign is, of course, the production of brand recognition and customer loyalty. Researchers concerned with building public awareness and engagement have very little control over commercial narratives, which leads not only to mistakes in representation like this, but also to these narratives of distance and disconnection, alienness, which might actually be more insidious, undermining rather than promoting a sense of care and stewardship. Recent work in the field of science communication in South Africa urges scholars to heed a call to work towards decolonial frameworks and methods. So the phrase science communication for social justice aims to connect science with society through critical media and communications research on issues-driven topics to which scientific evidence is central. Advertising campaigns paid for by big multinationals are not necessarily best positioned to contribute to the science communication for social justice.
You have 1 minute left, sorry.
Perfect. But the campaign also invites us to consider what polar engagement with real reach could look like within a contemporary South African context, and demonstrates the value of humor and inclusivity, diversity of representation in planning future engagement initiatives. These are particularly relevant for those of us working to pilot a South African Artists and Writers program for South Africa, as one of the relatively under-resourced nations of the Global South with a science program, and the only African country with a science program in the Far South. So two of the next presentation will actually be by one of our postdocs who will be curating an exhibition of the artwork. And it includes things like, as you can see, Jean Brundritt's IceLens images on the left. Please see Senna Marie in the pre-recorded presentations, and tomorrow in 2 panels, we will be talking about our project, an arts residency project in relation to the international projects. So please, I hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. We will now move on to the next presentation. We continue with Fernando Waiquinir and the presentation Antarctic Imaginaries on Social Media, Visual Regimes, the Pharmacon Effect, and the environmental implications. Welcome, Fernando. Wait. You have... Give me a second. You should be able to. Okay. You should be able to speak now.
Thank you. Well, thank you for being here. My name is Fernando Waiquinir, and I present my research titled Antarctic Imaginaries on Social Media, Visual Regimes, Pharmacon Effect, and Environmental Implications. So I would like to begin with the next quotation about Antarctica. It's a Argentinian book by Agustín Larrea and Tomás Balmaceda. It says, 200 years after it was first seen, it remains as mysterious as ever. In the collective imagination, it has sorry. Sorry. So it is a virgin, ancient, and vast world, latent possibility of glimpsing what the planet might be like without human intervention, possessing a beauty that protects itself with a hostile aura, and demands the sacrifice of anyone who seeks to know it. So in this quotation, we can summarize some of the idea of the collective imaginary of Antarctica, a place that is perceived as sublime, virgin, and hostile. So I began this research with the following question: how is the place imagined through the lens of otherness? Today, we have access to a vast source of image through our phones or other devices, and history shows us how certain devices have served as distributors of image in other times. For example, photography, literature, and cartography function as apparatuses for telling stories about other places and how those places were. And through this imagery, a geographical imaginary was constructed, especially without ever being in that place. For example, if we look at the case of America, there was a Dutch engraver named Theodore de Bry, who represented America without ever being here. His work constructed the idea of cannibalistic, hostile, and wild land, an image that could be had served as a device for colonialist discourse that are preserved until today. So it could be interesting to think about what people in Europe thought when they saw these engravings and what their reaction might have when someone told them there was a place like this on the other side of the earth. So the case of Theodore de Bry invites us to pay attention to the image that reach us and how they reach us. And another example is the work of Paul Gauguin. That Paul Gauguin was a painter who traveled to Tahiti at the end of the 19th century. He developed a painting style that produced a vast collection of images that show us a remote place like Tahiti. And then the French geographer called Jean-François Stassac analyzed the role of Paul Gauguin paintings in the construction of the European Imaginarium of Tahiti through this work, and how this work continues the influence in the Iceland touristic appeal. until today. So he argues that tourism in Tahiti carries the idyllic and nostalgic myth of the tropical paradise in Tahiti, and it is shown like other place or a place that is authentic or primitive. So we can find a vast range of approaches that show us how is the construction of the geographical imaginarium through the image. So if we think about the work of Orientalism by Edward Said, we can think about it too. And taking this example, this question come to us is how is Antarctica imagined? So I would like to share you these clips.
Here's how much I spent on a 10-day luxury cruise to the most expensive.
I don't know if the sound is on.
Yes, you can hear the videos.
Okay,
place
thank you.
Antarctica. I'm going to preface this by explaining we signed up for this cruise 2 weeks before it set sail, so if you are flexible, you can definitely get to Antarctica on a budget. Flights cost me $1,683 from Boston to Buenos Aires on Comfort Plus, and about $45 total on Uber. I had a hotel club while we were in Buenos Aires, but it would have cost us $380 for 3. We've had some delicious food during our time in Argentina and spent $132 during our 3 days there. We took a charter flight from Buenos Aires to Ushuaia, and that was included in the price of our cruise. We also had a mini tour of the national park, and that was included as well. Once you were on the ship, of course, everything was included: breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, and room service, drinks, including alcohol. They had activities like yoga and hot tubs and saunas. Excursions were also included. We went on 2 every single day. For our room, we got upgraded to a suite, which would have been $24,000 a person, but we paid $6,148. Yes, for last minute. I spent about $500 on board for spa experiences and the kayak. Lastly, $56 on insurance and $110 on new clothes. Leaving us with a grand total of $8,674. Not the cheapest trip, but definitely still worth it.
So what the visual apparatus communicate to us with these clips? So certain ideas seem to emerge, like luxury, the sublime, comfort, heroism, desire, and why not me? So if we place these ideas within the environmental crisis, the geopolitical and economical context, we can begin to recognize a problematic situation for the continent or Antarctica. And if we open any social media platform like LinkedIn, Instagram, or TikTok, we can easily find this kind of image. Some posts even discuss inhabitate Antarctica or develop some architectural projects there. So this proposal for me are some like problematic because if we don't pay attention to these ideas, maybe this could be a problem for the environmental in the Antarctica. So earlier this year, a new article appeared about the rise of massive tourism in Antarctica, referring to the what it was called the TikTok effect. So this recalled the so-called Justin Bieber effect in Iceland some years ago, that when a music video was filmed in the Canyon of Iceland in other places of the country, and it was led to an increase of the tourism there, implying environmental problems. So what is happening now when we see a graffiti suddenly appear in Deception Island, or when an influencer seeks to complete a heroic journey to the continent without complying any regulations? So the Chilean philosopher called Andrea Soto Calderón used the concept of pharmakon. It's a term from the ancient Greece that refers to the substance that is capable to being both medicine and poison at the same time. And it applies to the contemporary context. An image can operate in a similar way. It can preserve existing ideas and structures through the repetition, or it can generate new ones through the emergence of alternative image. So if we see the image of Antarctica, we can see the repetition of the themes or the ideas. So in the era of spectacle, Rancière identifies a problem that is the scarcity of image. So we notice that the repetition of the same visual tropes like luxury, sublime, heroines, desires, and wilderness on Antarctica. So we must begin to think through the other image that could guide us toward the preservation of the continent, because the current visual regime of Antarctica is producing a form of desire that could harm it. So the idea is to think through other image. So in my project, I'm taking this idea, exploring AI generate image with dystopian scenario of Antarctica, and reflecting how this kind of image could be circulating tomorrow if we don't pay attention to what is happening today. So I would like to conclude bringing up this image from Adriana Lestido, because this is a different way to represent Antarctica, because this photograph was shot in the Deception Island in our artistic residency when she was there. And in her photo book, she said that she was impressed because it was very different from what she was imagining when she knew that she will go to Antarctica. So the idea of the project is to think about other image of Antarctica, to try to go against the actual regime of image. And to conclude, I would like to end with this quotation where Agustín Larrea y Tomás Balmaceda said that we need the ice lies latent universe waiting to be discovered, but within the realm of ideas and within the scientific domain. So I believe that it's essential to bring perspective from the art, philosophy, and the humanities to the scientific research that are doing now on the continent. So the invitation is to think about other image of Antarctica in the actual context. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fernando. We will now open for some questions. So please do send them in. As always, please, if you can, add your email. So if they cannot be answered in this small window, we can send them to the presenter. For the time being, there doesn't seem to be any questions, so we will wait 3 minutes until next block of presentations. So, and you can still send them in, of course, please. we just received a question. Due to time constraints, probably Fernando won't be able to answer it here live, but again, we will be sending them. So it says, Fernando, I really enjoyed your presentation and found your idea of generating false but possibly future true images fascinating as a way of countering the narrative, which requires representation of personal experience. Thank you. Well, it isn't a question, it's a comment, but I hope Fernando appreciates it. By Elizabeth Lee Lewis. We will now, due to time, we'll be moving on to the next block of presentations, and we continue first with Jerusa de Alquim Radicki or Radici. Please do correct me if I'm wrong in either one. And her talk, Antarctic Living Heritage, Approaching Emerging Cultural Manifestations in a Context of Transient Inhabitancy. Welcome, Jerusa.
Hello,
Yes, we can hear you.
can you see me? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you.
So now I will start to share my screen, no? Let me put my PowerPoint.
Yes. There we go.
Yes. Can you see that? I think yes, no? Can you
Now
see
we
my
can
PowerPoint?
see, yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna open them. I'm gonna put in the first slide. Okay, I'll put it here. Yes, in here. So thank you. Yes, my name is Jerusa Radicki. So first of all, hello everyone. This presentation introduced the activities of the project Antarctica Living Heritage Allied, developed at the University Institute of Lisbon since 2024. The project explores emerging cultural expressions in Antarctica and examines the gaps and synergies with recommendations for the intangible heritage inventories. Allied is funded by MSA Horizon Europe program and receives support for the Center of Research in Anthropology, CRIA, in Portugal, and from the Laboratory of Antarctica Studies and Human Science in Brazil. Well, the main international framework for intangible heritage inventory is the UNESCO 2003 Convention. The convention emphasizes the concept of living heritage, showing that long-standing cultural practices adapt over time, and that's why they persist. It identifies 5 categories of manifestations: oral traditions, performing arts, social practices, knowledge of nature, and traditional craftsmanship. Documenting intangible heritage aims to support cultural sustainability, community well-being, peace, and positive relationship between people and nature. Countries use UNESCO guidelines to design the national heritage policies. The inventory process usually involves research, identification, documentation, description, and finally, inscription on official lists. Inclusion in the list represents a legal protection and depends on relevance, community recognition, risk of disappearing of the cultural manifestation, and social value. Manifestations should be documented even if it is not inserted in the lists. It enhances visibility and recognition. UNESCO's interactive platform dive into intangible cultural heritage that you can see on the right currently present over than 700 cultural manifestations. They are divided between 5 UNESCO's electoral regions: Africa, Arab states, Asian and Pacific, Europe and North America, and Latin America and Caribbean. So far, there is no entries for Antarctica. So after years working archaeology in Antarctica and spending time there, I began to feel restless about the fact that global culture and heritage mappings consistently exclude Antarctica. It can be understandable due to the lack of the native and permanent population, and also because UNESCO is not engaged with areas managed by the Antarctica Treaty. Yet, Antarctica is a very unique cultural case study. What may be missing is a method suited to its particular context. Now, 20 years after the 2003 convention, even UNESCO is moving beyond the traditional paradigms. For instance, include emerging 21st century practices, as well digital cultures. Understanding emerging cultural manifestations in Antarctica can bring some benefits. It supports a holistic view of heritage, connecting culture, nature, intangible and intangible elements. It engages diverse actors in Antarctica history, showing how present-day communities shape the culture there. It helps explain cultural diversity, reflecting international cooperation, while also identifying gender and ethnicity issues. It reveals which cultural matrices are brought to Antarctica, such as traditional cuisine, scientific culture, national rites, and symbols. Other matrices remain absent due to geographical, geopolitical, or geoeconomic barriers. It also arises awareness of life experience, providing resources for education and well-being among Antarctica teens. In a light project, data collection explored cultural manifestation through the lens of global guidelines for documenting tangible heritage. This is a sample-based exploratory effort, not an effort to conclude a complete inventory. By the end of the project, we expect to produce a guide with key useful concepts, with methods and insights to support the identification, classification, and documentation of the Antarctic emerging cultural manifestations. We are also developing a georeferenced map using Archives, a tool created by Goethe Institute, designed for cultural heritage mappings. Again, the goal is not to complete the mapping, but to explore how it can be constructed. This work is supported by the Laboratory of Architecture and Technology, STAR, also in Portugal. So we already have some key concepts in mind. Well, inhabitants, nationalities, and ethnic backgrounds shape predominant knowledge and epistemologies. It of course vary depending on the region of Antarctica. Internet and digital technologies are already connecting Antarctica communities to global network. A sense of belonging is developed through repeated stays of inhabitants. It can generate a deep connection with places, spaces, nature, and housing structures like camps, boat stations. Categories such as ethnicity, gender, class, sexuality, and age in intersection produce complex and veiled inequalities and privileges also. Beyond scientific or institutional results, Antarctica inhabitants share personal stories and pictures with people abroad. They blend with global imagination and symbolic meanings about Antarctica. Upon returning home, inhabitants often share impressions, skills, and experience with colleagues in preparation of future candidates to the next missions. So I bring now a mosaic of images that can be good to illustrate some elements. So these photos were taken during my field work in February 2025 on King George Island in Fields Peninsula. It is a region with a high concentration of stations, and we observe diverse matrices there, religious references, civic ceremonies, national symbols, and cultural exchanges to shared meals, gift giving, and joy celebrations. Internet access is now available at the main Antarctic stations, and social media has become a real-time bridge between inhabitants and the world. Showing drawings, flags, and letters, often made by kids, is a common way for inhabitants kindly connected people outside with Antarctica. Another interesting point is the WIFA, the Winter International Festival of Antarctica, is another important original media event. It's a creative collaborative short film competition. And shared identities often tend to align with team dynamics and shaped by common goals and missions. The use of equipment, labs, and house dependence are essentially shared. The clothes are often offered by the national programs. The wide and exuberant landscapes cause impressions, stories of teamwork, international cooperations, endurance and bravery in facing nature are frequent. For example, we see the watercolor at the top, at the right, is depicting a Chilean vessel rescuing Brazilian shipwrecks. Gender equality policies are now available, formally included in Antarctic programs, and some statistics about the subject are available. Inhabitants often develop a sense of a temporary home. Sorry, back. Yes. Temporary home by organizing spaces in the public and private areas and designating zones for work, leisure, and daily routines. The picture at the slide show the cognitive maps of camps and Ferraz Station, Brazil Station, drawn by researchers and later presented to young audiences at 2025 a science fair in Brussels. Well, Antarctica called for a broader recognition of its emerging cultural manifestation, and this approach can help better integrate Antarctica into different global heritage frameworks. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Elisa, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Now, we move to the final exposition of this morning block with Siyatullah Sigmund. I'm sorry. Will present Antarctic Drift, Southern Africa's heritage of ice. Welcome, Siyatullah. You're muted. Let me unmute you. There.
Perfect. Thank
Okay,
you.
now we can hear you. Perfect.
Hello to everyone. I'm just trying to share my video slides. And thank you to the presenter who's just presented. Okay, I hope everything is now visible.
Yes, everything's visible.
Hello? And I
Yes,
hope that
we can
okay.
see
Okay.
and we can hear you.
Okay,
We
perfect.
can hear you, we can see.
Good morning to everyone and hello, wherever you are. And thank you to everyone else that's presented. Today I want to introduce Antarctic Drift, Southern Africa's Heritage of Ice. This is the title of an exhibition that I'm in the middle of curating as part of the South African Antarctic Artists and Writers Program pilot, supported by the South African National Research Foundation. I have colleagues who have previously discussed this program very briefly and others who will discuss it in more detail tomorrow. But mine today is to just give a glimpse into this exhibition, which forms a small part of this larger program. Okay. Southern Africa's Antarctic heritage is shaped not only by science and geography, but also by its historic role as a gateway to Antarctic research. Since 1960, the South African National Arctic Program has coordinated operations in Antarctica, the Southern Ocean, and the sub-Antarctic islands, of which was spoken about Marian Island was spoken about in the previous talk. Nations having bases in Antarctica have historically been linked to political and geostrategic interests, with science flagged in many of these as a central focus. And although cultural engagements can be traced historically, formal cultural engagement, like the Artists and Writers Program, which I'm now a part of, is something completely novel within a Southern African context. This is in line with the global trend. Globally, Antarctic bases have long preceded formal artists programs, artists and writers programs. The first American base, established in 1929, came more than 50 years before a formal cultural program began in 1981. Today, Australia, New Zealand, Argentina, Chile, and France maintain structured cultural initiatives, while Norway and the United Kingdom support projects more intermittently. And Germany, on the other hand, does not have a formal program, but has supported cultural collaborations through the Alfred Wegener Institute. These efforts all demonstrate that Antarctica is not only a site of scientific, but also a vital space of cultural and imaginative significance. And more than 60 years after establishing its first base in 1960, South Africa is now entering this tradition through the APW pilot. Designed to deepen public engagement, the Artists and Writers pilot offers artists and writers the opportunity to work aboard the SA Agulhas and in subantarctic contexts like Marion Island and Antarctica, producing work that extends beyond expeditions into expeditions, events, artworks, music videos, and various other digital platforms. I am curating the first exhibition to come out of this program, bringing together artists and writers who have worked aboard the SA Agulhas, alongside others whose practices engage more broadly with the Antarctic region and oceanic humanities as a whole. Today, I offer you a preview of this exhibition, its framings, its ambitions, and some emerging themes. If history and heritage have shaped how Southern Africans encounter Antarctica, then what might it mean to curate such encounters? The curatorial statement that follows offers a conceptual entry point into Antarctic drift, revealing how these histories, encounters, and artistic practices may converge. We may never see it, but when the cold fronts hit, we know it is there. Antarctica exerts a spectral presence in Southern Africa, a force felt more than seen, traced in weather patterns, ocean currents, migratory stories, and the slow drift of land masses, peoples, and ideas. Though separated by vast oceans, the two regions are deeply entangled through flows of air, water, and land. Antarctic drift explores these hidden connections, revealing an often unacknowledged heritage, the environmental, cultural, and historical traces of Antarctica in relation to Southern Africa. It asks, how might we think with ice, not only as a substance, but as a metaphor, an archive, a mode of relation, proposing speculative lineages that link Southern Africa's long past, Khoisan cosmologies, Iron Age rainmakers, queens, with colonial expeditions and future climate transitions. Here, drift is not only a glacial process of transformation, but also a curatorial method. It draws attention to detours, to the forgotten and submerged. It engages with time, memory, artistic gestures, and material traces, following currents across and around. Antarctica, long absent from African and certainly Southern African cultural awareness, is more present than Southern Africans often realize. South Africa's entanglement with Antarctica through history, science, and logistics opens a space for broader conceptual connections. Antarctic drift responds to that absence, drawing Antarctica nearer through artistic imagination and a humanities-led inquiry. It asks, what might it mean to see Antarctica as part of Southern African heritage? What future would such a connection make possible? Within a post-apartheid and post-colonial framing, the exhibition turns attention to waterscapes and icescapes, imagining the terrain where humans cannot easily live and considering what meaning a distant outpost like the ones we are dealing with might hold alongside inhabited land and the coastal zones of Southern Africa. Antarctica emerges within this context as a paradox, inhospitable yet deeply storied, shaped by science, imagination, and geopolitics, and crucial to African futures in a changing climate. These ideas form the foundation of this exhibition. Because of time, I will focus on the work of 3 artists and close with the writing of one to show how these themes take shape in diverse and compelling ways. What does Antarctica look like through a lens made of ice? This is the question asked by artist Jean Brundet in 2029 as she joined a 6-week research program aboard the SA Agulhas, producing the body of work which she titled Over the Horizon. Using lenses shaped from ice that melt as the environment changes, Brundet created images that are fragile, fleeting, and impressionistic, offering a poetic interpretation of the polar region, using technology to make this unseen visible. And on the other side, to make the unseen visible, or also insist on the unknowable because of how the ice works. Over the Horizon invites a reflection on Antarctica's impermanence and the changing world we inhabit. What stories do oceans hold, and how do they link us across continents and time? This is the question posed by the second artist I will discuss today, Adrian Wharton, in Cape Town-based artist and a Cape Town-based artist and researcher. Her practice emerges from years of walking and gathering along the southern Antarctic coast, and more recently from journeys to the sub-Antarctic, Marion Island to be particular. Her ongoing project, Waterlogged, traces the environmental histories of Southern Africa, the sub-Antarctic, and the Southern Ocean through sound, photography, videos, and prose. It engages with former whaling stations, seaports, and protected marine areas, weaving these sites into a dialogue with Marion Island, southeast of Cape Town, South Africa. By bringing together archival material and recording, sound recordings, Adrian's work reveals how histories of exploitation, mobility, and vulnerability are deeply entangled in oceanic landscapes. Her work invites us to listen deeply to the ocean's memory and to reflect on our own place within it. As one of the artists in the exhibition, I'm compelled to implicate my own work into today's discussion. The question I wish to pose in my work is, what if climate change could be read as a story written across time? My digital drawings reimagine Southern African landscape as layered living archives, weaving archaeology, history, and anthropology to show how the deep past shapes alternative futures. My project, Polar Linked Futures, explores climate heritage, entanglements between Southern Africa and Antarctica, linking inland late Iron Age settlements and their migratory patterns, and with Antarctica's ice melts and its influence on African weather patterns. Using digital drawings, photography, and other images, I create a visual archive of images and installation that invite audiences to reflect on how the deep past might guide us through a volatile climate future. Emerging themes. The work shared here emerge at the intersection of art, history, and environment, exploring how oceans, memory, and climate are entangled across time and space. Together, they practice treat history as a living archive using experimental methodologies from photography to ice lenses to sound, video, and digital drawing to translate environmental fragility to and speculatory forms. Their project traced deep connections between the Southern Oceans and Antarctica.
Excuse me, you have 1 minute, I'm sorry.
And I'm concluding right now. I have not spoken to the literary connections to the project, but they are present, and I want to finish with a piece that will be featured in the exhibition. Ice seems to look the same everywhere. This makes it convenient for representing climate disasters in a very general way. You've seen the scenes before. Ice shearing off the glacier cliff and sliding into the sea, lowly polar bears, that kind of thing. Don't pity the animals. More than 90% of all the animals that have ever lived are now extinct, most of them unremembered. And yeah, I leave you with that to think about. And the exhibition is titled Antarctic Drift.
Thank you very much, Zico, for your presentation, and Kedusa as well. We have a few minutes left, so in case anyone wants to make questions to either of the both presenters, please do make them. As always, we encourage you to add your email in case due to time constraints we can't make them. We can't answer them, so we will make them get to our expositors.
Thank you.
There doesn't seem to be. Oh, there we go. There doesn't seem to be any at the moment, so I do encourage anyone in the audience that wants to make them to please go ahead. If not, we will wait until 12 p.m. We will start the next block of presentations. Okay, given that we've reached the time for the next block, we will now present a panel titled Latin American Antarctic Multiplicity and Identity in the Mirror. And we are pleased to welcome our speakers, which are Ignacio Cardone, Pablo Fontana, Julian Kelly, Ana Flavia Barros Platiao, and Ilenia Rodriguez. We would like to remind you this panel has a total duration of 60 minutes, including time for questions. So we kindly ask everyone to be mindful of the schedule so we can keep our program on track. Despite that, after this, we will have a lunch break given our time zone, but we invite the presenters to open the microphones and cameras. Let's see.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Excellent.
Excellent. Yeah. Oh, maybe. Yeah. Yes, second.
Olá.
Olá.
Boa tarde, vocês me ouvem?
We are currently missing one expositor, but given that this is a panel and it's free, you may start, and we will wait to see if she arrives. So please do start. Thank you.
Hello. Good afternoon. Well, I'm gonna say a few words as conveyor of the panel. Ileana Rodriguez just told me that she will not be able to attend the panel, so she will not be with us today. Also, Pablo Fontana couldn't be here because of a diplomatic meeting, so we have his co-author Andres Levinson here. So this panel take the form from a special issue we call for the Cahiers of Americans Latins with David Dumoulin. My name is Ignacio Cardone. I'm professor at the Pontificia Universidad Católica del Perú, working in humanities and social studies about Antarctica for a long time already. So I will be presenting a brief introduction to this panel that reflect or revolves around what we have seen in the works. So probably I will try to tie all the works together within the topic of this special issue that justify this panel. So Latin American Antarctic Multiplicity and Identity in the Mirror. So thinking about Latin America, I mean thinking of a singular region with its own identity, shared history, and collective voice. And at the same time, a plurality of identities, conflict, peoples, and expressions. This duality makes it challenging to try to grasp any aspect of the region's human and social dimensions, and even more so when these are projected onto a distant yet connected space, such as Antarctica. Well, how then is the tension between singularity and plurality expressed in Antarctica? How does Antarctica reflect these aspects of Latin American relationship, both within the region and beyond it? It is seen as part of the regional space or as a region in its own right. How do national belonging, regional identity, and rivalry intersect? Of course, there is no single answer to these questions, but reflecting on them helps to better understand the complexity of the relationship between Latin American countries and Antarctica. While historical and geopolitical perspective, often articulated from national standpoints, have been long dominated the interpretation of this relationship, a more transversal perspective grounded in the humanities and social sciences is only recently emerging. The field of Antarctic humanities and social sciences in Latin America remains underdeveloped but increasingly active. This work seeks to offer a glimpse into the contemporary efforts to examine and strengthen the study of these dimensions of Latin Americans' connection with Antarctica, a step toward making them more visible. So the first thing is singular or plural. Is Antarctica seen as a region on its own, as part of South America, or as an extension of each national territory? The answer, predictably, is all at once. So what kind of words do these Latin American Antarcticas evoke? Are they worlds that exist in public policies, in social imaginaries, in text, or in forms of sociability? This invites us to revisit the very idea of Antarctica as a single uniform entity, an assumption already questioned by the social sciences. It requires us to consider not only actives in Antarctica, but also those carried out for Antarctica, whether in bureaucratic offices, scientific laboratories, or within social imaginaries that connect the continent to national and regional identities. Antarctica is presented as part of national territory in Argentina and Chile, as natural and historically bound to the region through the notion of South American Antarctica, and to a lesser extent as a distinct region that reinforces the Antarctic treaty regime and generates its own social and symbolic space. What may appear as a contradiction to extra-regional observers reflect the same overlapping identities that shape Latin American relationships, identities, and emotions. Just as Latin America is both singular and plural, the Antarctic region below the South American subcontinent is simultaneously a South American Antarctica and a set of South American Antarcticas. This layered configuration of identity, cooperation, and rivalry has often been overlooked by analysis framed through mainstream global north perspectives. What in reality is a complex historical formation combining solidarity, competition, and conflict has frequently been reduced to a rhetorical concealment of strategic interests. Speaking about Latin American Antarctica thus requires acknowledging both a single Antarctica and multiple Antarcticas, a shared cooperative space, but also a contested and conflicted one. Making sense of this singularity and plurality demands sustained analytical attention from the humanities and social sciences. So what about Latin American Antarcticas and the Antarctic humanities and social sciences? While historical and geopolitical interpretations of Latin Americans' relationship with Antarctica, especially in Argentina and Chile, have a long trajectory, other humanities and social sciences fields have begun to engage more actively with Antarctica research recently. Beyond history, archaeology and anthropology have taken the lead in shaping the broader AHSS field in Latin America, while other disciplines are only now starting to contribute. Regionally, the development of Antarctic humanities and social sciences tend to mirror the scale of each country's Antarctic program and the strength of its national science system. Argentina and Chile lead in the number of scholars, research initiatives, and publications, followed by Brazil, whose presence has been growing, as evidenced by its participation in the Standing Committee of Humanities and Social Sciences conferences. Uruguay maintained a marginal presence with limited participation in regional scientific initiative and meetings, while other ITS countries such as Peru and Ecuador remain almost absent from this field with only sporadic involvement. So it is Antarctica a mirror of Latin American country. So the metaphor of a mirror is useful when thinking about the relationship between Latin America and Antarctica. As a specular image, Antarctica resembles and refers to the region, but also differs from it. It resembles the region in the complexity of its relationship, reflecting dynamics that operate both within Latin America and its interaction with the wider world. Yet, it also differs from the region in the history of each country's involvement and the political weight the region holds in the international setting. In this complex relationship, territorial identity with Argentina is visible in the imaginaries of Argentina and Chile, expressed through cultural devices such as school curriculum, maps, and artistic representation. As Fontana and Levinson will show, Antarctica appears as a wide reflection of the Pampa in Argentine documentary films, well as to reveal in the political framing of each moment, including the country's relation with Chile and with the international community as a whole. The initiative developed within the Antarctic regime also mirrored the political relevance assigned to the territorial dimension and types of partnership that follow from it. As Kelly and Garcia demonstrate, the documents presented in the consultative meeting of the Antarctic regime show a predominance of Argentina and Chile that is distinctive to the Antarctic context and relates to their historical involvement in territorial claims. With some degree of regional cooperation exists within the regime initiative, the co-production of documents with extra-regional partners revealed that the Antarctic regime is a space in which multiple forms of cooperation emerge according to interests and opportunities, a pattern that mirrors broader regional dynamics. Scientific cooperation in turn reflects several aspects of Latin American relationship both within and beyond the region. While the Antarctic Treaty encourages open collaboration and regional cooperation is facilitated by linguistic and geographic proximity. Asymmetric capacities means that South American research project often depends on partnership with global North counterparts for funding and equipment. Political consideration also shape these choices as the search for or avoidance of alternative partnerships such as BRICS frequently follows domestic political shifts. As Barros Plateau et al. Show, the case of International Antarctic Synchro Problem Expedition reveals intertwined patterns demonstrating both the potential and the limitation of Latin America's scientific cooperation in Antarctica. So as a final remark, Antarctica certainly reflects many aspects of Latin America, yet it also differs in important ways. Understanding this complexity requires a deeper and more diverse engagement from the humanities and social sciences, one that takes into account the specificities of Latin American context. Latin America and Antarctica are connected in multiple ways, geologically and historically, but also through shared identities, environmental continuities, and even emotional attachments. Capturing these intertwined dimensions demands an interdisciplinary approach, but also analytical frameworks and perspective grounded in Latin American reality. Such a task is particularly challenging in a region where research funding is limited, especially for humanities and social sciences. Nevertheless, the growing Antarctic and human social sciences community and its expanded body of work offer reasons for optimists. Looking ahead, advancing this field requires more than academic commitment. It calls for institutional support, sustained regional cooperation, and the recognition that understanding Antarctica for Latin America is also a way of understanding Latin America itself. The southern continent offers not only a physical mirror, but also a conceptual one, an invitation to rethink the region's place in global knowledge production, its capacities for collaboration, and its own internal asymmetries. In that sense, to study Antarctica from Latin America is to engage with the region's unfinished project, a permanent, always in the making reflection. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ignacio. Now, whomever wants to go ahead and continue in the panel may go ahead. Ana Flavia, we know you have a presentation, so we also have it in case you need us to present it, or you can do it yourself. We have that activated currently. You are muted currently.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Okay. So I'll share my screen. Just a second, please. Can you see the presentation? Yes. Okay. Thank you. So thank you very much for this opportunity. It's a great honor to be here talking to you, especially from this point of view of social and humanities, social science and humanities. So our title is an article that we submitted to the review Cahiers d'Amérique Latine. And the title is Polar Governance in an Uncertain Multipolar Order, Latin America and the International Antarctic Coastal Circumnavigation Expedition. So our research is based on the importance of this ICE expedition, that's International Antarctic Coastal Circumnavigation Expedition. And the field report was launched a couple of days ago. So I'm going to talk about this expedition and how it, for us, is a symbol of the importance of South American cooperation, but in the sense that South America corresponds to Latin America and to everything that Inácio just mentioned, how it's important to keep our identities, our history, our interests connected between our continent, between Latin America and Antarctica. So we have some premises from international relations because that's my field. So we are very worried, my field and of other people from my group, sorry. We are very worried about the shifting global context, about this multipolar order, about the geopolitical competition, the risks of instability, the current negotiations of the International Polar Year, and we defend that South America, in this case, represents Latin America's interest, even though many countries from Latin America are not involved directly in the polar regime. But why does it represent? Because especially of climate change agendas and threats. So our research question is, if we assume that current a certain international order exerts direct effects on polar regimes and the ATS reflects a club model in which access and influence are restricted to a group of 29 parties, what is at stake for Latin American countries? Very briefly, we divided our answer in 3 points. First of all, the preservation of the legal framework that prevents the use of force to claim territory by the great powers and to exploit resources unilaterally. This corresponds a lot to what we have now concerning mining in the sea. Second, scientific and environmental diplomacy, which is soft power. The model of science-based governance allows opportunities for scientific collaboration and political influence, diplomatic influence in the ATCM. And finally, the regional solidarity, in line what Ignacio Cardon just mentioned, because we understand that Latin American interests are or have to be defended together. So to explain a little bit about what's at stake and the potential of our collaboration, we took the case of this ICE expedition and say in the first place that it corresponds to an idea of science diplomacy in which the use of scientific cooperation to address common problems is the priority. This expedition is from the end of 24 to the beginning January 25, and it involved institutions from Argentina, Brazil, Chile, China, India, Peru, and Russia. It was funded by the European Fondation Albedos pour la Cryosphère, and it was carried out with a Russian icebreaker and the scientific coordination of Professor Jefferson Cardia Simões, who is Brazilian. And the teams were multidisciplinary. The big areas are atmospheric sciences, glaciology, land, lake sampling, and oceanography. And I'd like to stress or to underline the importance of the data collected during this expedition because it was the closest possible to the Antarctic coast. And we know that modeling how the ice is melting and the profound transformations in the region are difficult to study to analyze. So this expedition is really important because the data collected now will be, of course, analyzed, published, distributed, and that's one big opportunity that we have to show how we can work together despite geopolitical tensions. This is the track of the expedition for you to have an idea how close it was to the coast of Antarctica, how ambitious it was. So, and really important also to mention that many scientific stations were visited. So this enables people to meet and to start networking or to continue their collaboration. This is people-to-people work and laboratory to laboratory. I think it's important to underline also that this scientific cooperation existed long before. This is not the first expedition with the same ambition, but this is the most recent and very successful one. And the final remarks are, there are many things at stake. The legal regime, of course, the stability of the legal diplomatic regime, influence and voting rights of countries that are part to the to the Antarctic Treaty Consultative Meeting, the future governance of resources, mineral and biological resources, the scientific and environmental framework for the sake of humankind to build better answers to all the climate agenda, all these profound transformations that we have, ocean transformations also. And finally, and most important for us here, the regional interests and solidarity and cohesion, in the sense that we have the potential to continue working together and improve, especially in social sciences and humanities, to improve our joint research. So this expedition ICE proved the South American capacity of leadership in scientific cooperation with other countries. And despite underfunding, especially for social science and humanities in general, South America shows potential through diplomacy and science. Funding, coordination, and diplomacy are essential to gain status in the Antarctic Treaty System. And we defend that Latin America must act collectively to shape Antarctica's future. Those are the three most important references used here, notably the report from the expedition by Professor Jefferson Simões that I mentioned, and where the pictures were taken. And I'd like to thank you very much for your attention. And this is the photograph of the Russian icebreaker that was used. We also believe that we cannot afford to be to forget that climate change is urgent and it will affect all the region, all our most important coastal communities that are vulnerable, but also the Amazon rainforest, the islands in the Caribbean, and all the countries in Latin America. So this is our final message. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We can now move on to the next member of the panel, whomever wants. Let's say Julian, if you want to.
Hola. Sorry, because I made the presentation in Spanish, so I can give some thoughts in English as I advance in the presentation that it's made in Spanish. If it's okay with the non-Spanish persons. Just a second, I'm going to share. Well, I cannot share the presentation, so I don't know how to do it. So
Give us
it's okay.
a second. We will see. Do start them.
Start.
Hello, you should be able to share.
Yeah, I press share and
Yeah, now you're sharing.
it's okay. Can you
Yeah,
see?
we can see.
Yes.
Bueno, voy en español, como dije, y voy a tratar de ir cerrando algunas ideas en inglés mientras voy avanzando. Al igual que el resto del panel, este es un trabajo que se presentó a revisión para una edición especial de la revista que ya mencionó la expositora anterior, Ana Flavia. Acá lo que nosotros, la pregunta original que nos planteábamos fue, más allá de los vaivenes ideológicos y hasta económicos de la región de América del Sur, a partir de la década del 90, hubo siempre una pulsión a articular, a generar espacios de cooperación internacional en el continente, ¿no? Y eso, salvo principio del siglo XXI, producto de la crisis del neoliberalismo, se observa, ya sea con un perfil de corte liberal o con un perfil de corte neo-keynesiano, de los gobiernos se observa una intención a la cooperación. Entonces nos preguntamos de qué manera esto se correspondió, se podía observar en la Antártida. El 95, nosotros el periodo partimos del 95, ¿por qué? Porque por un lado la intención fue contrastar o observar de qué manera se producía este fenómeno en la Antártida, si es que se producía, y por otro lado, si esa cooperación derivaba en generación de autoridad en la Antártida por parte de los estados sudamericanos, ¿no? Si esa cooperación contribuía a ordenar, ¿no? Las acciones de los estados, de todos los estados miembros del sistema. Ese doble. El 95, ¿por qué partimos del 95? Porque ahí, con la decisión 1 del 95, ya se homogeneiza la forma en que se presentan los documentos y cómo esa presentación de documentos se deriva en instrumentos, podríamos decir, legales en términos del tratado, con distintos tipos obviamente, como sabemos todos, de obligación, ¿no? Desde resoluciones hasta medidas, decisiones, ¿no? Las medidas como obligatorias. Entonces, ese doble, el objetivo del trabajo es ver eso, es por un lado ver si ese proceso que en Sudamérica se incrementa a partir de los 90, año 95, por un lado el sistema del tratado tiene esta decisión que nos permite homogeneizar y estudiar a partir de ahí cómo cooperan y cómo se convierte eso en esa cooperación, si se convierte en autoridad. Por otro lado, en el continente estaban produciéndose distintos hechos donde la cooperación entre los países sudamericanos era central. 95-96, el Mercosur se convierte en sujeto de derecho internacional. El Pacto Andino se reconfigura en Comunidad Andina. Se firma el Acuerdo Comercial de Complementación Económica entre Chile y el Mercosur. Es decir, en ese mismo momento había procesos de cooperación en el continente. Entonces, un poco la idea del trabajo estaba traccionada por esto, ¿no? Por ver el perfil de la cooperación, ver si se traslada, o la manera en que se traslada, si se traslada y la manera en que se traslada, y como subsidiaria, una intención subsidiaria, ese traslado en el régimen antártico permite observar una contribución a la generación de autoridad por parte de los países sudamericanos. se inscribe, hay numerosos autores, varios que están aquí presentes, que trabajan el tema de América Latina, Sudamérica y el régimen internacional, el régimen antártico, ¿no? También el régimen, la cooperación Sudamérica en la Antártida, no solo en términos de régimen antártico, sino más allá del régimen, o en algunos casos especiales, como el caso de Lorenzo con la Cruma. Y por otra parte, otro grupo de trabajos que abordan las formas en que participan los estados parte en las reuniones consultivas, ¿no? ¿Por qué nos interesa este último grupo? Porque es la manera en que nosotros vamos a observar de qué forma se da la cooperación, quiénes cooperan y si esa cooperación resulta o no en generación de autoridad y en qué temas colaboran. Entonces, ese serían dos barra tres grupos de estudios sobre Sudamérica barra Latinoamérica en asuntos antárticos y por otra parte estudios sobre la forma en que participan los estados en las partes en las reuniones consultivas específicamente del tratado. Por otra parte, en relación a cómo nosotros pensamos o qué andamiaje conceptual, trabajamos gobernanza y régimen internacional, entendiendo gobernanza como un nivel de abstracción mayor y régimen menor. Y la noción de cooperación la tomamos de Keohane, que trabaja, es un autor tradicional de las relaciones internacionales y que trabaja la noción de régimen, uno de un teórico de regímenes internacionales. Entonces, este sería el marco conceptual a partir del cual realizamos el abordaje. La metodología es cualitativa. Hicimos, a partir de la base de datos, como todos la conocemos, del sistema del tratado, nosotros jugamos con la base de datos para acceder a la información y generar una base propia con una categorización propia que nos permite sí, nos ayuda a responder las preguntas que nos hicimos. Hicimos el periodo 95-2019, les dije por qué el 95, tanto por motivos internos al tratado y por motivos regionales, de corte de perfil de cooperación regional o de instancia de cooperación regional, y el cierre es el 2019 por la pandemia y cómo la pandemia ya afectó un poco las reuniones, por lo menos del 2020, ¿no? Como todos sabemos. Ahí lo que, por un lado, bueno, trabajamos este periodo, trabajamos con documentos de trabajo y documentos de información, no trabajamos ni con documentos de antecedentes ni con documentos de la Secretaría, documentos de trabajo como aquellos documentos que pueden convertirse eventualmente en medidas y, consecuentemente, generar autoridad. Documentos de información como puede ser contribuir a los documentos de trabajo o presentar, como todos sabemos, presentar posiciones o información de lo que está haciendo un Estado en la Antártida y en el marco del tratado. ¿Cómo trabajamos con los documentos? Bueno, los documentos, de todos los documentos, tomamos tomamos los que fueron presentados por dos o más partes, ¿no? Dos o más actores. Y de ahí hicimos un segundo rastrellaje y distinguimos los que son presentados solo por partes sudamericanas, por dos o más partes sudamericanas y al menos un actor regional, por una parte sudamericana y al menos un actor regional, y documentos sin participación de actores sudamericanos. Esto, si bien lo incluimos en el conteo general, los dejamos a un lado, no los consideramos para ir a un análisis de contenido de los documentos, la última categoría. Bueno, acá tienen unos cuadros de números, ¿no? De valores, de qué es lo que se presentó. En el artículo nosotros desagregamos la agenda, o sea, una agenda mayor de temas presentados. Acá, en términos de generación de autoridad, este cuadrito, bueno, permite ver de resolución, decisión y medidas sobre qué temas, ¿no? de la agenda o qué temas de la agenda se abordaron. Acá como las medidas van a planes de gestión mayormente. Y las resoluciones, ahí las decisiones amplían, ¿no? Se diversifican un poco más. Y esa es otra de las cosas que observamos, es que la región tiene incidencia, o sea, en términos de resultantes de la cooperación, tiene incidencia en planes de gestión y también le interesa temas de logística y de bases, ¿no? El tema de las inspecciones es algo que hay varias presentaciones en conjunto que
Excuse me.
se ordenan en ese fin.
You closed the presentation. Cerró la presentación.
Sí.
Por si acaso.
Disculpe. ¿Ahí?
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Bien.
now we can see.
Ya está. Bueno, entonces, así como yendo a lo que observamos, es, por un lado, que hay patrones de cooperación asimétrica y eso quiere decir que hay un predominio de la relación de Argentina y Chile, ¿no? Eso es un predominio en la presentación de documentos bilaterales, es prácticamente excluyente. De documentos entre dos estados sudamericanos es prácticamente tiene el 82%, ¿no? de las colaboraciones bilaterales. Es, es- es muy significativo y esto se contrasta con lo que sucedía en el continente. No tanto en que no haya cooperación entre Argentina y Chile, sino que, como recién les decía, en el continente estaba presente la creación y la evolución del Mercosur y países como Argentina, Chile y Uruguay, Argentina, Brasil y Uruguay, tres países de importancia de participación en el sistema del tratado, tiene una asociación estratégica y sobre todo Argentina y Brasil, y eso no se corrobora, no se corresponde, por lo menos en el ámbito de las presentaciones en las reuniones consultivas, ¿no? Argentina y Chile sí sostienen esa asociación estratégica en el ámbito del tratado, siendo que en el continente esa asociación estratégica estaba dada por la relación entre Argentina y Brasil. Por otra parte, la cooperación de los demás países o entre los demás países del continente es marginal, como dije hace un ratito. Ahí observamos también estas dificultades en consolidar una agenda que trascienda los intereses de cooperación argentino-chilenos. Si bien hay presentaciones en un periodo bastante amplio, ¿no? Del 95 al 2000, ahí voy a agarrar porque no está ahí el cuadrito, no lo tengo ahí, del 95 al 2019, la relación entre los países sudamericanos que no son Argentina y Chile es heterogénea, es decir, no se observa lo que se observa entre estos dos países y es muy esporádica, tampoco no tiene una frecuencia en el tiempo. Y por último, ya para ir cerrando, lo que les adelantaba, que los temas de agenda principalmente se ordenan a planes de gestión, es decir, el tema territorial está muy, muy presente. Y por otra parte, eh, la, esta voluntad también de eh, sí, incidir en la forma en que el tratado gestiona las inspecciones, ¿no? También es parte del componente territorial. O sea que un poco la cooperación está reflejada en esa impronta y explica esa simultaneidad de intereses de dos países reclamantes en el continente austral. Bueno, esa es un poco esa es la propuesta y la presentación. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Now we have one final person on the panel. Andres, if you would like to talk. Thank you very much. And thank you, Julian. There we go, sorry.
There. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you for the invitation to this panel. Thank you, Ignacio. I'm gonna share you something with you. It's not just a presentation, just a couple of images to introduce our project and also some examples of what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about specifically one very special film that was released in 1954. But I'm going to try first to show you this images first. Let me check if this is working. You can see it, probably?
Yes, we can.
It's okay. Good. Well, this is part of this presentation is part of our project. We call it the Project for the Preservation of the Argentine Antarctic Cinema. Since 2017, now the Argentine Antarctic Institute and the Buenos Aires Film Museum. I'm working there. I'm a coordinator of the Cinematheque, but I'm a history professor at University of Buenos Aires. Well, since 2017, we carry out this work for rescue and preservation and access of Argentine films made in Antarctica through the 20th century. The period is from 1904, more or less, to 1980. Probably why this? Because these films they were shot on film. No, it's like the era before the videotape and before, of course, the digital era. Mainly because since the middle of the 80s, probably we have what we call a kind of inflation of materials, of elements, and probably we're not ready, we're not prepared to work with that amount of materials. So by now we're working just with the films that they were shot during the 20th century. The films made in Antarctica, Argentina throughout the 20th century are we consider them now like an invaluable document for studying the different political and social relations established by the state in the area, as well as a way to understand the ways of inhabiting the space by men and women of the past and the change that occur over time. We consider these films really like an amazing document, like time capsules, from a long period, since the beginning of the Argentine occupation, in 1904 to, as I said, the middle of the 80s. I'm going to show you a couple of examples just to show some stills of different films that we rescued under this project. What we call this, like, that we are rescuing something, because these films, until 2017, most of them, they were in closed vaults, just in deposits in their film cans, and no one was paying attention to them. That's why we consider this work now kind of that we're rescuing something. For example, this is an example of a very archetypical film. This was made by a newsreel, Sucesos Argentinos, in 1941, 4 men at the Orkney Islands. As you can see there, another still was shot by Sucesos Argentinos, was a very, very important newsreel in those days. This is another example, Argentine sovereignty in Antarctica from 1947. But I want to say something about this particular newsreel. In those days, there were two important newsreels. One was Sucesos Argentinos, the other one was Noticiero Panamericano. No? In those days, the people who were going to the cinemas, no, first before the film they want to watch, usually they were shown a newsreel, not 10 minutes long. And in the 40s and in the 50s, it was not rare, not uncommon that they were shown this special numbers of these newsreels dedicated to Antarctica. So in 1954, under a context of strong geopolitical tensions in Antarctica, we have this very special number of the Pan American newsreel presented by the Instituto Antártico, the Argentine Antarctic Institute, that was founded in 1951. And as you can see, the name was called Pampa Blanca. No? Already in the opening shot, the title appears superimposed over the silhouette of the Argentine Antarctic sector. The concept of Antarctica as a pampa, we want to say something about this. The quintessential Argentine landscape in the national imagination, associated with the gauchos, but white, consists of a symbolic incorporation of the area into the national identity. This designation also connotes the potential source of resources that this territory holds, as demonstrated by the humid pampa for Argentina, which could be called like the green pampa, one of the richest areas in the world for agricultural production. So Pampa Blanca, it was released in two versions under the same title. The first as a special, as I said, special newsreel for Noticiero Panamericano, only 10 minutes long. But the second version is what we're most interested in. It has a long introductory intertitle. Here we have a part of it. And it's a production of the Argentine Antarctic Institute, and it's 40 minutes long. This version continues with the association of the Southern Andes with the Antarctic Peninsula, nominated at the time by Argentina, as the narrator mentions, as land of San Martin and also Antartandes, showing this continuity, this geographical continuity. But it also includes lots of materials from the Antarctic Institute, and especially shows its promoter and first director, General Pujato, in those days was still a colonel, because this film shows 4 different campaigns from 1951 to 1954, whose figure was the figure of Pujato, was instrumentalized by the first Peronism. Images of the film now show the installation of the base, the first Antarctic, the first continental base, the San Martin base, and regarding the cult of San Martin preached by Perón and with whom he sought to be associated. So we constantly see images of Pujato, in this film. It's also observed here in Antarctica, and in the documentary. The end of the documentary shows an image of San Martin before an image of Pujato. Also want to associate it both personalities. The medium-length film recounts the first 4 years of the Antarctic Institute, and the various bases and detachments are shown, reusing archive material from other documentaries filmed in those years. We also observed other historical backgrounds cited by the speaker, such as the Argentine sailors who fished in Antarctica in 1817, the rescue carried out by the Corvette Uruguay in 1902 in Cerro Nevado, which the Argentine Navy had taken possessions just months before the release of the documentary. So also in a historical way, this documentary wants to show this continuity, and the different big moments of the Argentines in the area. Science occupies a more prominent place than before, partially due to reference of the activities of the institute, and also showing, like an excerpt in the film, some images of the Antarctic Museum. and in the union between science and sovereignty is reinforced. As it says in the documentary, and I'm citing here, Argentines have been and are those who have turned Antarctica into a true laboratory for scientific research, seeking to unravel the mysteries of that remote region, now says the voice over in the documentary. The reference to the American part of Argentine territory also shows and some changes, because shows the bicontinental map conception of the national territory that was established in those years and endures to the present days. Various scientific disciplines carried out by them in the Argentine Antarctic, as they call it, it's for the benefit of the world and is constantly mentioned in the film. At this point, the documentary, in its final minutes, with the final words of the narrator, where the scientific argument as a foundation for sovereignty shows its maturity. And I'm finishing with this, quoting the last part of the documentary, as it says like this. Our country, responding to its long tradition, spares no sacrifice to unveil the mysteries of what was the dark southern pearl of the antiquity. But its revelations are delivered to the world without selfishness. Argentine Antarctica submits its legends to progress. Scientific research continues to open bridges in the ice, while a single flag reflects its colors on the frozen barriers. The blue and white one, the same one that flies on the pole of the mast of the gaucho sailors who venture into those latitudes. The same one that protects the work of the men who are shedding light in the darkness of the South Pole, thanks to an Argentine effort that enriched the science of the entire world.
Thank you very much, Andres, for your exposition. We now have 9 minutes for questions in case anyone in the audience or any of the other presenters today want to make each other questions. We have a question by Ignacio. Do you want me to read it, or do you want to ask it yourself? Yeah. There we go.
Okay.
Sorry.
Can you hear me, right? Yeah. So I have a question for each one of you. So I will try to be brief, and I ask you to be brief in the answer. So, Ana Flavia, how do you see the possibilities of big science such as the ICCE being carried out by Latin American countries alone? I mean, what are the possibilities and limitations for that? And also, you talk about the need to Latin America cooperation in shaping the Antarctic future, the collective action. So why you see necessary Latin America to cooperate in this? Why to choose Latin American partners instead of other ones? And that made me ask, what is the place that science have in that collective actions that you proposed? So para Julián, so from your analytical framework, what explains your findings, or what can you say about your findings from a theoretical point of view? So what explain what you have find in this patterns of cooperation within the ATS through the document? And lastly, for Andres, how does Antarctic film situate in the broader cultural background? I mean, what was the relevance of this film in the whole documentary production of these periods? And that all filming of that period was on the same state of abandonment until recently, or just Antarctic ones? And do you have any information about if there was any effort to distribute these films regionally? I mean, in Latin America and other countries? I'll leave it here.
There you have the audio. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. I'll go very fast. Thank you. Ignacio, thanks a lot for your questions. I will answer on my own capacity because this is a teamwork and the others are not here. About logistics and cooperation, I don't think any of our South American countries are able to finance, to fund such a huge and ambitious operation. First of all, because we don't have the money. Second, because we don't have icebreakers. And third, because we do cooperate with other countries like China, Russia, India, and hopefully we will cooperate more with polar countries from Europe too. So I don't think we have the means to imagine in the near future that we could fund such an expensive mission, unfortunately. The limits are very clear, material limits. It's not a problem of political will or scientific cooperation between scientific groups. It's really about logistics and the material means of preparing such a mission for 4 or 5 years and then having the capacity to implement it. Second question, why cooperation? Why do you think cooperation in terms of South America and Latin America? Because our region needs to stay united to promote our own interests from a diplomatic perspective, from everything that's at stake, as I mentioned, and especially, that's my field, because of climate change impacts. What happens in Antarctica and in the Arctic affects the whole planet. I can see Europeans, Asians, and other groups preparing or discussing at least how they need to prepare for this profound change in the cryosphere. And I think that us Latin Americans are not doing enough. I would dare to say that we need to improve our cooperation so that we can be more prepared for the future. Especially what I'm studying now is the AMOC, is the South Atlantic Current, overturning current, and it affects all our coast. And we need to work together on how to prepare society, social sciences, decision makers, because we can see the effects already very clear for our region. So I would try to synthesize like this: climate change forces us to work together. We don't have another solution. Thanks.
Well, I'll be very quick. First, for one, it shows that the dynamic of the cooperation in the continent is quite different to the one in South American continent is quite different to the one in Antarctica. That's why Chile and Argentina, they are able to use the regime to pursue their interest those interests they are from long history, right? They came from the early 20th century, and they use the decision-making process, or the decision-making process of the regime to cooperate in areas that, as we could see, contribute to the claims of territorial claims in Antarctica. That's why the two main authority generación de autoridad, ¿no? Medidas generadas, authority measures are in protected areas, it's land or territory, and in inspection, right? It's in the base. So they go to land and bases. So they use the regime to pursue goals that they came before the regime was built.
Now for the last question.
Okay. What was the relevance of these films? Yes, we consider that they were important in those days. We found lots of short documentaries, and we have evidence that they were shown at the theaters. And also, we have evidence through different documents that the people, they were really interested in this kind of films. It's an amazing amount of production since 1940s, in the 40s and the 50s, especially during the Peron government, but also afterwards. So yes, they become like an important part of our cinematography, and they were important for in political purposes. No, also why we found them in this kind of abandon. It's something that it's happening with most of our cinematography, but especially with this kind of films. Why most of them they were held by the Navy, no, and really the people from the Navy, they didn't know what they were holding. So, and they arrived to a proper vault just 10 years ago. So since then, we're trying to put them to do some conservation work, but for 50, 60 or 70 years, no one was paying attention to them. But also this happens with the films that they were shot by the Antarctic Institute. And we believe this happens also because the lack of legitimacy of films as a historical document. Now, this is something that happened in the recent years, 30, 40 years ago. So before that, historians that they were worried about Antarctic history, they were taking care of paper documents, and they didn't realize that probably these films, they were inside this cans. Also, they probably maybe had something to say to us from the past. And last thing, yes, these films, they were distributed, of course, in the local cinemas, but also we have evidence that they were shown abroad through the embassies. Because, for example, we have some films that have subtitles in English, or before the emergence of the subtitle systems, we have versions in English versions of this film that they were shown in different parts of the world.
Wow. Thank you very much to all researchers that have made their presentations throughout the morning. We will now go to a break. I will cut a little lunch break because here in Chile it's until 4 p.m. For assistants in South Africa, that's like 10 p.m. and Australia, it's 6 a.m. So we will be back. We again thank you both for your presentations and for being here, and the best to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.